So just so you guys know, it says it is. I don't know. Going live. Yes, I've clicked the button and I'm kicking off my VPN. So we should be all set. Stand by. No, actually kicking it off. There we go. All right. Silima, everyone. Welcome. Today is October 24th, 2023. We are here with a very special guest, Danielle Krey. Am I saying it right? I'm saying it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Name pronunciation. That seems important. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Before we jump into learning about her and what she does and kind of just pondering about, was that a werewolf, Nikki? Is that what I heard? Did you guys hear that? It sounded like a werewolf.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Oh my God, no, I moved my computer.
Oh.
I don't know. It was just like.
It was very dramatic. It was a very dramatic move.
Yes.
Your computer feels dramatic today.
Yeah, it's having a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is dramatic over here today.
Yeah.
It's been that way here too. It must be going around.
It's
yes.
It's with Mars, and they're hanging out today.
The Mars and Pluto opposition. Everyone's a little dramatic, maybe.
Let's see. What are we doing? We're gonna have Danielle do her own introduction because, as you guys know, I will stumble all over it. But before we do that, a little bit of house cleaning. First of all, if you guys like this type of thing, like, share, subscribe, do all of the stuff, as I'm sure you're aware. Not just to me, obviously, well, maybe not obviously. Danielle also has a YouTube channel. Her information is in the video description, as well as Nikki's and Friar's. I'm gonna have you have them give you a little rundown of what they do too. Obviously, friarpezzle.wordpress.com. Mine's is SumerianAstrology.com. And Danielle, yours is sparkylife.life. Is that right? Do I remember correctly?
Sparky Spirit.
Life. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Love it. Yeah. Nikki is still void of a website, but her email contact information.
I'm an undercover practitioner. I'm such an in-house. You're trying.
So sometimes you got to lay low. I've taken my hiatus here and there.
I'm kind of on hiatus right now, actually. I've got a lot of personal things going on, so maybe for like the next month or two, I probably won't be available so much for readings. I might be able to squeeze them in. So
okay. It happens. Sometimes you just got to handle your business. As that goes, and as we'll see with Danielle, we all kind of do some slightly different things. Obviously, if you haven't figured out, I do Sumerian astrology. Friar, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? Probably too for Danielle, in case she's unaware, because she might be. I don't know.
Sure. So really what I want to do is help people better understand themselves. And I do that through a Western esoteric milieu. And I do offer services. I have one-on-ones. I have compassionate listening. I have spiritual coaching. And really the goal of it is to broaden your self-awareness and to let you have a peek at some things inside that you might otherwise not look at. And of course, you can find me at friarpezzle.wordpress.com, or you can email me at friarpezzle@gmail.com. All one word.
I thought I muted myself. My dog's barking at nothing.
It's okay.
Like totally nothing.
Barking at me, which is fine.
No, she's definitely not. Nikki, what about you?
I do readings. And my readings are they're never the same. So it's kind of it depends on the problem, depends on the issue, depends on who's coming to me and what they need and what they want. So but I do readings, astrology readings, and you can email me and get a hold of me. I am on hiatus right now, but if you really need to get in and see me, let me know, and we'll make some arrangements. I'm in the middle of a move and all this other crazy stuff, so life happens. More like it's kind of like Pluto oppositions or squares all fucking year, but whatever. We'll talk about that later. We were talking about that. We'll talk about that later.
Just so you guys, anybody out there watching, if you see me fidgeting over here, I'm behaving myself. I'm still training babies. So like this one's really sketchy. So needs extra work. So if you see me like looking around or whatever, that's what's going on. I'm not trying to be rude or ignoring. Okay, Danielle, it's time. Why don't you tell us about what you do. Now, I know a little bit about how you came to Sidereal Astrology because I watched your video and you had a really cool story and a great explanation. Why don't you, not just, you don't have to just, hit the astrology stuff, but just, generally what you do and what you're about and that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Just by the way, Abby, I'm glad that you like specified that your babies are rats, just because I feel like for a moment, if someone didn't know, you could literally just be having like babies over there that you're
Yes.
taking
Yes.
care
I
of.
do have
So
my baby sling on, so that
little
could
baby
definitely be
rats.
it.
Yeah, I love it.
I
So
didn't
yeah.
even notice it was a baby sling.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, my story is similar to some of the other guests that you've had on here in terms of my journey with the zodiac. But I do have, in general, a background education in forensic psychology specifically. I've done some work in the criminal justice arena in my earlier 20s and my mid 20s. But really just felt like I was going to lose my soul pursuing that. And it's a special area of study for sure. And I was like missing the spiritual, like that just there was this spiritual element that was like missing from this psychological approach to the mind and the human life and the quality of our lives. And so I've always been interested in astrology. Like astrology's been in my life for over a decade. Been professional for about 2.5 years now, after studying more in depth. And per usual, started with the tropical system, really learned that approach to the zodiac and had this the same story where it was like the full moon, like the same lunar dynamic that I was like born on. It was on my birthday, and as someone born on a full moon, like that was one of the reasons I got into astrology, was like that dynamic in me just always fascinated me. And my sister was born on a new moon. So my sister has new moon energy, like she's a new moon person and I'm a full moon person. And I've just like consistently like studied both of us, and perhaps our longer journey that we've like had together as sisters. But when I, had the little, apps on your phone, you hold it up to the sky, you see where everything is. And I'm like, like, that's not Virgo, where my moon in traditional astrology is a Virgo moon. But when I was looking up at the full moon on this day, it was in Leo. So that just spiraled me down the same kind of existential crisis that I feel like a lot of astrologers go through, of like, wait a minute, like what is going on here? And I almost gave up the study. I almost was like, I'm a skeptic at heart. I don't take things for face value. I don't take things just based off of faith and trust, even though there is that element, that, if we talk about Gemini Sagittarius, that axis point of information and meaning, there's place for both. But I've really been into the deep study of why. That tends to be the question I've continued to ask with my study of astrology as I've gone professional and my additional training in quantum physics. So I should say that's also, I'm a quantum physics nerd. And I think we're living at such a cool time right now where spirituality and science are really merging. And I think, a couple of your other guests have also shared just how exciting that is. That,
Danny did. She shared that. That was so cool. I was like, I don't know anything about that. But yes.
Oh my gosh. I could just like, that's basically how it's the study of quantum physics, the additional training that I've taken, which hasn't been, a college degree. I will definitely give credit there, but the master classes I've taken from quantum physicists and the other books and things of that nature have really just allowed me to dive so much deeper into my understanding of You know, why does that moment of birth matter so much? Like that moment of birth, that on a quantum level, it is like so significant when that happens. And not only that, but like the base frequency of every single celestial body, and the light patterns, the photonic patterns from the constellations. Like, you know, there's just so much more that quantum physics really brings into it that I like can't get enough of like talking about. So I bring in that angle a lot. That's commonly how I share astrology, is through quantum physics.
We talk about that, the theory of why astrology would or would not work, or why it does or does not work, depending on who you talk to.
Mhm.
That I like, I like most of them. I mean, I think they all have some validity, but I'm interested to hear your take as far as like on a quantum level. Why do you think astrology works?
Astrology works because of a principle called fractal geometry, or this is a study of mine that I am deeply investigating and exploring. When I say fractal geometry, does anyone here specifically kind of understand what I mean when I say that?
I know what you mean. A little bit,
A
like
little bit? Okay.
a little
Yeah.
bit, a little bit. I'm excited. Tell me more.
Well, I'll kind of summarize, you know, within the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, that is correlated with fractal geometry. And it is the principle that we see the Fibonacci sequence in the structure of a galaxy down to the center of a sunflower. You know, nature repeats itself in certain geometric forms. And these are on, and when you have a shape, you have a base frequency. Like vibration is everything. You know, this is a very Pisces Virgo, like within this macro to micro lens that we look at life is like the Pisces, where you find Pisces and Virgo, to be honest. Pisces is like, look at everything like it's vibration, and everything, we're all connected. The unified field is like, but then, you know, it's not very clear. Life is not very clear when you're living in this world of vibration of everything being that energy. But then, you know, certain vibrations create certain frequencies create certain shapes. And so when you see a shape made, there's a base level frequency to that shows up on other planes of existence. And so basically, you know, the solar system, we are all a micro expression of our solar system. You know, one of the things about astrology that, you know, I tend to discuss a lot, or one of the misconceptions I would say, is like I hear people like walking around, and I did this too for a long time, like, oh, my big three, I'm my sun, moon, and rising. And it's like, you know, I don't get a lot, you know, I don't really like Leo or Leos, and I get like, you know, and it's like we detach ourselves from certain astrological components, but the truth is all of these energies are in us. Somehow it's just how your relationship with them changes. And so every single one of us was born into this world with a certain photonic pattern present based off of where the sun was and where all the photons were being reflected from where all the planets were. And there's a certain solar activity level kind of based on these planetary arrangements. And so there are these like, we're all this like arrangement of the solar system in a very specific relationship. So it's this principle of like fractal geometry that is like a vibration that's core in your being.
Beautiful. Love it. 100%. I agree. I couldn't have said it
Yeah,
better.
yeah. You remind me of some other astrologers who've shown me different patterns. So they'll look for patterns within the chart, and they'll see, you know, stars, or they'll see this, and this represents this and that. And I haven't gotten there yet. I'm like, whoa, yeah. I see that, but it's amazing. I love that approach to astrology. It's one that I've scratched at, but I've never really let sink in. So I love how you explained it.
Friar, how do you I don't know how to say it. How do you feel about what Danielle just said? Namely because when we talk about it, Friar is what we call you, an astromancer, yes. I don't know, Friar. First, it's probably better if you explain your use of like the planetary energy. Well, not, you don't have to do like the whole, you know, thing, but just to kind of give either Danielle or our listeners an idea. We have this kind of running conversation where Fryer is not into as far, and I know I'm speaking for you and you're gonna have to jump in, but again, I don't have visual cues while you're trapped in the teleporter. So I'm not, I don't know if you're like scowling at me angrily or anything. But he's not big on the predictive astrology, and on some level I'm on board with that. But what he uses the planetary energies for is more for it's more introspective and trying to look at you internal. But so we go back and forth sometimes about how or why astrology works, basically what I said before. So Fryer, what do you think about that? Like, does that resonate with you? Do you have would you like to debate those points that she just made?
Debate, I don't know about that. Because, first of all, I don't, how should I put this? I think if a system works for a person and it makes sense to them and they can use it and it's relatively predictable and it's relatively internally consistent, go for it. If the Golden Girls Tarot works for you, then
That's the Golden
have
Girls
at it.
Tarot.
That's one of my favorite examples because it's sublimely ridiculous. I
had no idea there was one. Now I'm going
I didn't
to.
either.
Oh yeah.
Found the 007 one. James
That's
Bond.
good.
That was pretty.
Yeah.
It was mid. I didn't buy it. Wasn't into it. Sorry, go ahead.
Fryer, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, what were you saying? Sorry.
Well, I think there's so much to learn, right? I feel like every time I open a door of learning, there's like 10 more behind it. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. And so in many ways, what I've elected to do is to sort of fall back onto a certain system. And for me, there's a lot of noise happening.
It's the werewolves at Nikki's house, I think.
Man. God,
I think that's what's going on.
So
so just to clarify, it's not necessarily then how or why it works. Am I hearing you? If I'm hearing you correctly, it's more that you just like your system and you don't want to deviate from it right yet.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, well, how do I put this? Anyone can fire up a YouTube channel, right? And you can crack out the Golden Girls Tarot, and you could have like your pujas to your Smurfs.
Yeah.
There's any number of ways that you can do this. What I'm interested in generally is, who are you listening to? Where did you get your knowledge? How do you think it works? Who is the operant power? Is it an internal locus of control? Is it an external locus of control? Is that a silly question because there is no locus of control, or everything is the locus of control? These are the kind of things that I concern myself with.
Okay.
At the same time, I know that I have had experiences that lead me to believe that the system that I'm using works. I'm not saying that it's the dominant system that everyone else should, like, throw away your Smurfs, throw away your Golden Girls Tarot, because I got all the knowledge right here. But I'm always interested in like who a person's influences are. Where did they get their information? If it's all from TikTok, I may or may not trust you. But if it's but if it's from let's just say curious people throughout the ages who were quite sincere and quite smart and really did a lot of work to try to figure these things out, that's interesting to me. And from whence this stuff is derived. Would you say you have a Neoplatonic version of the world? Is it more of a Kabbalistic view of the world? Is it more Egyptian? How do you, it can become very large questions, it can be very small questions, but I'm always interested in knowing how a person really thinks this stuff works in an integrated way, such that it's internally consistent. Now you've mentioned quantum mechanics. So is this like the many worlds interpretation? Is this the Copenhagen interpretation? What are we talking about?
Great questions. I'm going to say that my knowledge has been, oh, sorry. Oh, perfect.
No, you're good. You're good.
My knowledge actually has been kind of all over the place in terms of the different astrologers that I've learned from, and where I've even digested quantum physics in my background education in psychology. And so I would say that from like a quantum physics perspective or a quantum mechanics, it's really been based on like the modern findings of Nassim Haramein specifically. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with him, but he's kind of at the forefront of these studies where this was officially published, you know, and I do care about research. I do think Western research and the scientific method does have a place in terms of us verifying studies and what we're sharing. Because, like, to Fryer's point, you know, our sources really do matter in a world where there's like infinite information out there. There's such a gift of having information at your fingertips, and then there's also that downside around like, okay, what's true and what's not true. And for example, Nassim Haramein has come up with a equation. He developed an equation that I'm going to summarize this, and there's a lot deeper research for anyone to do if you like. This is kind of opening a little bit of a can of worms here.
Open the can. Go for it.
Yeah, open the can. Where he has connected the forces that exist within an atom to the forces that are like within the galaxy. Like, he basically has connected the micro with the macro as like by way of the forces that are present in both, which is one of those things that hasn't been done before between you know, Einstein and Newton. You know, Newton's like mechanical approach to the world, and Einstein's more quantum approach to things. So I guess would that be like the mini worlds perspective? But there is this like macro to micro, this reflection that is repeated within you know, all living things, like down to the atom. And even this is fascinating. I just learned this too, and Fryer, I'd be curious to see like, yeah, your thoughts on this. But I was just listening to another astronomer. I actually follow and listen to a lot of astronomers, which is actually a growing field as well. Like, I feel like if an astronomer is really honest about their research or like where the field is, like, we're learning things all the time, like that is kind of overriding previous knowledge. And it's like a really, really cool area right now that is just, we're discovering all kinds of things.
Yeah, the James Webb telescope's just totally shattering all of their preconceived ideas about the universe. It's crazy.
Exactly. Like, we have to, and that's what I want, you know, as a personal, you know, as studying this, like, I give myself permission to be wrong about something, to have a previous understanding and notion about a system or a structure, and then new information come in, and it's like, okay, well, now we got to kind of go back to the drawing board and like understand this in a new way. But galaxies don't form randomly in the universe. They form in specific clusters that, when you really, you know, to their theory, when you zoom out and you look at this like massively, almost incomprehensible grand scale of our universe, it almost looks like, you know, neural synapses in the brain. These like connections, like there's this mirroring effect that we even get as we zoom out, and it makes you wonder, how small are we? Like, I'm literally an atom in some like grander thing that exists. And anyway, so my thoughts really go like on, you know, kind of to that level of the macro, micro being reflected, all these levels.
Okay, so I think having talked to Fryer before, I feel like the call's all about like trying to, well, maybe I'm just doing it, trying to convince Fryer that astrology works and why it works and whatnot. So again, I think more of our disconnect when we do have these conversations comes in when we start talking about predictive astrology, and how or why it works. Now, I'm guilty of this too. I hear some forecasts and I'll be like, okay, that sounds like bullshit, right? Like
Mhm.
and I'm a skeptic too. I'm a huge skeptic. So if I can't prove something like every time, I just assume that, well, something's wrong and that's not really how it's working. But I give enough predictive readings to know that it does work, personally. But as far as like, okay, so we can get behind the idea of at the time you're born, you have this, quantum entanglement to the positions of, the resonant frequencies of all these planets, the layout of the solar system, in relation to the galaxy or whatever it is. So how then would you say predictive astrology works? If that's like our ground zero, what is it about the predictive side that works?
Oh my gosh, I am just so jazzed to talk about this idea that like I'm going to be like this is an idea that I've developed in my own understanding because I've also struggled with predictive astrology. There is a core part of me that really believes the present moment is always unfolding and there in no way is it possible for us to be able to predict the future, and that feels like there's like an energy in me that's just like I don't know, but so I've had that part of me that I've investigated and explored, and at the same time, our solar system and this quantum information and being able to know that Saturn is going to be here in 3 months in this energy. Like it's the solar system is a grand clock of like a grand complex clock of seasons and cycles. Like the same way that we know summer is coming next year, we know that the planets are going to operate in a certain way and bring about a certain frequency dynamic. This is kind of where I like to say we are not controlled by this is my opinion. We are not controlled by these forces. We flow and we co-create with them. And so there's a masculine and feminine principle here, almost like our DNA, and that's a subset of astrology where there's like DNA astrology, astrological DNA. Where we experience these fixed parts of ourselves in this like finite human form that we're experiencing. Like I'm not going to wake up tomorrow 2 feet taller. There's a fixed principle about our life that we're here experiencing, but that is not the whole story, and we can talk about epigenetics and how our choices and our experiences, nature versus nurture component, masculine, feminine. There is a structure, there is a masculine structure that is set in the seasons and cycles and the predictability of how things move, that it's like you can't not like Saturn was in the sky where Saturn was in the sky when you were born. In the same way that you got the DNA of your parents, and we can talk about, the fact that maybe we did choose that on some soul level that we don't remember anymore here. But how you choose to navigate that energy is what creates the future. How we choose to so I can give, and what I like to do in my when I'm working with my own clients and we're like diving into our energy, like I really work with like levels of consciousness with these frequencies. Like any frequency can be, operating in fear. We could talk about Mars. I know that Mars has been a point of discussion in a couple other places, but Mars can be operating from a place of fear, in which case there could be like aggression or overly defensive, or there's like I really do a Mars in advocacy. If Mars is approaching something from like a true sense of love, of wanting to fight for something from that place, then you're using that frequency in a new way. You're co-creating with it. That is bringing in this other part of the human, which is like divine, as conscious creators of this world. So I don't think I personally am really careful about like this exact thing is going to happen. But what I can say, I'm like, all right, well, there's some energy dynamics present here. The frequency is like the grand frequency of the energy field is going to shift, and we are a part of this grand frequency of like the solar system. And so how can I help you co-create and flow with that instead of like get lost in it or experience the struggle challenge parts of that area. So it's like both for me.
Okay. I'm on board with that. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too. It's
Okay,
very
so Oh,
I
go ahead,
link
Nikki.
that
Go
to
ahead.
a lot of spiritual stuff too. I mean, the way you just put it in a scientific, you just put it into scientific terms.
Yeah.
Lost my words there. But as you were talking, I'm like, I can relate that to how I practice. And my practice is a lot more, spiritual, probably a little bit more on the woo-woo side, but it really falls into a lot of that same, as above, so below. It just, as you were talking, it just reminded me of all of the Hubble telescope pictures that we've been getting, and it's been showing us like butterfly galaxies. I'm like, is this real? Is this real? Like, you see a big heart galaxy. I'm like, all the galaxies. I choose the one where I got to work a 40-hour work week. I could have chosen a little bit, like, I don't know, a little bit
Hey, the
better.
40-hour work week's not that old,
No, it's not that bad. No, it's not that bad.
Well, it's bad. It is bad. It's not good for you. We don't need it. We don't need to have it. But we haven't had it very long. So that's more
you're
of
right.
a modern development.
I broke free. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do. So I did. I was like, in a world of like infinite possibility and potential. I talk about manifestation with some of my clients where it's like, how are you, we really can shift the physical world when we shift our frequency, and there's like taking people into their dynamics. Anyways, of like knowing like totally can break free of that system. And the more of us who do, that system will eventually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's happening.
I run into a lot of people who have no clue, no idea that tropical does not use the actual sky. And they have no idea who they are because they're still reading books about this is my, not their sun sign. A lot of people are still looking for validation. Like, is this who I am? What is reflecting back to me? And we use those reflections, in other people and in our everyday interactions and our challenges. And when it's not reflecting back what you think that creates so much more confusion. And I'm seeing personally a lot of people who just don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. And when you point it out, you're like, hey, this is what's going on in your cycles right now. It just blows their mind. They feel like, I've heard people tell me, I've never had anybody understand me like this. Like, you really understand who I am. And I'm like, well, yeah, like, you should know who the hell you are. Trust it. So, that's what I'm running into in my practice is a lot of people who are disempowered. They have, been listening to the same bullshit narrative about themselves that they've been playing over and over in their head. And, as some practitioners I've seen, they're like, astrology shouldn't tell somebody who they are. You shouldn't be like, this is what you are. And I agree with that, but there are certain energies, each chart is different. And some people just need that information, that validation. Like, imagine being told you're a Capricorn and that's it. Like, you're and you're reading about Capricorn and you're like, wow.
Especially with all of the horrible stuff that they
say
associate
horrible
with
things
Capricorn.
about Capricorn. They say
do.
the most horrible things. And I've met Capricorns. I'm a Capricorn moon. They're some of the most loving, like, hardworking, devoted people you have ever met in your life. And they're not cold. They're not mean. They're not like Satan.
I've seen a lot of people, because that's what those are their fears about themselves. Those are things like, and they get the wrong validation. They're like, you're right. I am a cold person. I am really selfish. I am really, ambitious and don't pay enough attention to my family. And that starts to become the program,
Yeah.
So, I think that's, as you guys well, Danielle, I don't know if you know, but like originally Capricorn was just pure love and devotion and healing and selflessness and blessings. It was just amazing. It was the goldfish. It was like it was very similar to Pisces, into some, in some cases Sagittarius and also Aquarius, but, there was none of that negativity in there. There was really no negativity at all that I can think of. All the planets, Venus could wear a beard, she had her moments and whatnot. Like, sometimes the planets were more aggressive depending on their interactions and stuff, but the constellations themselves, there was nothing negative about them. Even Scorpio, I don't know why. When I was walking my dogs, I was thinking about Scorpio and just how that's another one where people have some really negative associations, especially when it comes to like the relationship astrology. You hear, oh, like Scorpios are possessive and they're psychotic and like they're gonna abuse you, and
Yeah, I've heard that. And I'm
yeah.
like, what? Oh.
But the scorpion was either used for protection or healing. Like it was used as a symbol and as a kind of like a talisman in Mesopotamia to protect people or to heal them. And it's yes, some of that protective aspect is in there, but I don't see all that other nasty stuff. But
Yeah, it's kind of like touching on and yeah, actually I have, the Capricorn's actually fascinating to me just because it has multiple, well, I guess traditionally the sea goat is what people recognize it as, but it's also been, translated as like, I think the crocodile was also at one point correlated with Capricorn. And it's this concept that it's like there's a base frequency that every single like planet, sign, house like holds in my approach to looking at the chart. And we're the ones who place like good and bad. Every single frequency is neutral. Every single position is like here for a purpose and a reason. It has a goal. It has a function in our lives. And we're the ones who will assign a negative story to it. And like, that's kind of the energy not operating in its like in its more functional expressions. When we associate things like Capricorn as like workaholic, that kind of thing. And it's, in a way, I'm like, Capricorn is a beautiful energy that is actually like really permissive of emotions. Like what's interesting to me, and I don't know if this is how it was in Sumerian astrology, but Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn, has that been consistent?
no,
Through the systems? Okay, no, it hasn't. Okay. But I guess traditionally this aspect has interested me. The fact that Saturn is the least dense of all the celestial bodies. So if you had a body of water, and Earth is the most dense. So I just kind of Earth is the densest celestial body in our solar system. And so it's interesting that we're experiencing physical reality here on this densest material plane, while Saturn is the least dense. Saturn would float on water if you put Saturn on water. And to every other body would either like, hover or sink. And that for me is like a frequency is really interesting, where it's like there's something about Saturn and perhaps Capricorn, if we can pull in that association, that's asking us to maybe overcome our emotions. And when I say overcome, there's a couple ways we can do this. I think Capricorn sometimes gets this association of like, don't feel the emotions, compartmentalize the emotions, be detached from them. And it's like, but really, pressure, this concept of pressure, which is associated with Saturn, is this equation that's associated with area. How much space do you have for emotions? And so Capricorn, in my opinion, operating in a really functional way when it comes to achieving something, perhaps a core desire of Capricorn, it's like we actually make space for our emotions. We understand what we feel, we know they're there, but we don't let that emotion prevent us from achieving something. But when Capricorn is like compartmentalizing and pressing and suppressing and not feeling, which is, I feel like, the common message, it's like that's not the only way Capricorn can function. And so
yeah, and I don't always see Capricorn functioning like that too. I feel like that's so like textbook. I think Capricorn likes to process their emotions. Oh, they're very deeply loyal, and they don't, it's not that they don't want to recognize their emotions. It's just that there's work to do. And sometimes we have to set aside what we deeply feel and know that they're like, this is going to benefit other people. We're looking at, across the wheel at Cancer, and Cancer, usually whatever we're doing, it's for, it's for others, for family, for like,
there's
those
a nurturing
deeply
component. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not cold. It's definitely not unfeeling. But there are times I think Capricorn has to take a look at how they feel and set it aside, knowing that it's about, keeping their family happy or keeping their spouse happy or making sacrifices for, the greater good. So I think Capricorn is definitely about making sacrifices and not so much about the cold feelings,
No, I don't get
but-
into the cold stuff. In Mesopotamia, she was Tashmetu. She was called the divine doctress, the granter of requests. She was associated, like one of her counterparts was Bao, and her sacred animal was a dog. Both Tashmetu and Bao were the wives of Pabelsag, which was Sagittarius, or Ninurta. And so they did she was a very, like, loyalty was definitely a part of her thing. She would make sacrifices for her family. So like all that stuff that you were even saying, Nikki, which is not observable in, the classical or even modern context, like nobody talks about that, but that goes all the way back to like the very beginning of astrology, which, that's the type of thing I think more astrologers need to do, is actually step outside of like, what's the current paradigm? Let's look at what it's actually doing, not just what the textbook told me it does, and make these observations and kind of test it out, run with it. If you see an interaction with Capricorn doing a certain thing, like, let's check that from person to person, chart to chart, to see if it's going to do that with other people too. And then let's figure out which of these is actually what it does,
Absolutely. I really appreciate the weaving in of the true ancient wisdom that was there like way before the tropical zodiac. And it is really interesting. One of the things that was so interesting to me about like my mom when I was switching systems is she went from Aquarius to Capricorn. And
was she upset? Did you tell her?
Oh, my parents are like, we don't know what you do, Danielle.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
Yeah, mine are the
no,
same way.
they do. And they're like, I love them, but classic Christian conservative parents who love me and accept me and support me for my astrological pursuits for sure. So they opened up their mind for me. I honestly have amazing parents. And I see my mom as exactly like, that character you were describing is like, kind of what you were both saying, like how much she has sacrificed and the feminine principle in Capricorn. And that like I'm going to set aside like, actually it's almost because of love, if you will. It's actually because of a true essence of love that Capricorn can maybe like do this like sacrifice of doing what needs to be done for the good of the family, or the spouse, or the contributing role that you have in your group. So I totally agree with that, Abby, around, okay, where really, what was the root of this? Where did this come from? And it's, even Ophiuchus has been of great study for me in terms of like, you're talking about a Scorpio, and Ophiuchus being the snake bearer, or the serpent bearer, excuse me. There's apparently even the serpent doesn't necessarily mean snake. It can, but and how that mythology was actually around like medicine, Ophiuchus.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. So anyways, I just think there's so much more to learn and to understand about every single one of these that really takes you back into the history. So
yeah, definitely
agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Friar's quiet. I was making sure he's alive. Are you alive?
Yeah,
I'm alive.
Okay.
So I'm gonna observe something.
Okay.
We seem to be going back and forth between a couple of different paradigms here. One of them is to identify oneself as, say, a Pisces or a Scorpio or a Capricorn. Another is to say that my sun is in Pisces or Capricorn or Scorpio. I have noticed that the language flip-flops between the two, as though there is some difficulty in determining which system that we're operating in. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm one of those. Oh, sorry. Was somebody talking?
Oh, no, go ahead, Abby. I was going to say.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. If somebody asks, I think to say my son is in whatever is kind of a giant waste of time. I don't, because it doesn't tell you the story. I know that's like that's where you get your tattoo, right? If you're getting a tattoo, it's whatever your sun sign is or something. Um, I agree with what Danielle said earlier. She didn't say it exactly this way, but basically the chart has to be read as a whole. Like you are not just your sun sign, your moon sign, your ascendant, whatever. You're the whole combination of how everything got dished out. So to that point, Friar, in my experience, when somebody asks, like, what do you do? Or if I'm bringing something up, and I would imagine other astrologers will do this too. They'll be like, oh yeah, my Venus is in Scorpio and that's why blah, blah, blah. Like they don't necessarily like somebody who's really into astrology. Those people usually will make the connection relevant to the conversation. I don't know. Danielle, Nikki, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I would agree with that. And I totally understand that, Friar. And a lot of people who don't know anything about astrology, like when you're talking with other astrologers, of course, we all can, connect the dots and put it all together. But a lot of people do just identify with their ego, that outside person that they are, the mask they're wearing. This is the person I've created, and this is who I am today. And my sun is in Sagittarius or whatever, Pisces or whatever. So on that level, I think that's why, we talk about like sun sign, moon sign, rising sign. It's very at the basic levels. But Abby, when you give a reading, you talk about the, mathematical ascendant, and then you talk about like where the ancients ascendant is, like that 12th house, first house. You had mentioned something about it last show with Danny, talking about the ascendant. And I feel like the ascendant is really important in the chart, where that sits for a person and what they're developing can tell you a lot about the person. But also there's been a billion people born the same day as you with the same rising. Okay, maybe not a billion, but like
about
a good
300 million.
Yeah. So
Yep, every day at this on this, yeah. So
where to go with it, I think it's still being developed. I mean, we're still developing ways to talk about it. I mean, astrology got squashed like totally by, we can blame a lot of different things, but I mean, it got squashed, and it was just laying there like in a shit pile forever. And
that wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. And I think we're finally putting it back together and looking at the sky and looking at what does it all mean. As we look at medieval stuff, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to that. Where like the moon is here and you see a black cat walk across your path, you're going to, whatever, die and piss your pants. I don't know. Like they just come up with something.
Right.
It's like, wow, it's satire, complete satire. And then we can't always, trust everything we get from like what we've got. Ancient astrology reports from kings, king and that kind of stuff. Like we don't really know if they're just trying to say shit to make them happy. We don't really know what the hell that's about. And we can get, our hands on all this other ancient stuff and we just don't know what it says. Like all the tablets, all the.
I'm working on it, Nikki.
The British Museum.
I'm working so hard.
But I mean, we do have like Greek philosophy. We do have like all the Greek stuff, and that was just a mess. I feel like everybody was just really drunk and talking shit about the church with their little plays and their stories, and so it's like I don't know. I mean, we're still sifting through it all, and I think it'll take lifetimes, honestly, lifetimes to rebuild. What was given to us, either by ancient aliens, by God. We don't know where astrology came from even. So
Danielle, ancient aliens, what do you think?
Oh my God, yes. What do you think?
Gosh. Well, I entertain, and it makes me curious, these findings and evidence that exist, and even some of these scientists and researchers that I've learned from strongly do correlate that something, even if we look at our DNA and, I'm going to blank on exactly the part of our DNA that it looks like it was like spliced in some way. And essentially like kind of pointing to this very significant moment in time where there was some sort of like emergence with the humans and a like higher intelligence where then we started to develop a prefrontal cortex, and that's like really where we got our analytical abilities and all this kind of stuff. And not only that, but also different artifacts across the world that show that there was perhaps like a greater intelligence present at these really historical periods of time than can explain like what was happening at that point in time. So I know some of like ancient alien stuff, and I dive in and I'm curious, and that was kind of rather broad, but I can't, there in my mind I'm like, there has to be, to think that there's not something out there is like is less, that seems kind of like the less founded in facts than something being out there, something
Yeah, that
with
sounds ludicrous when somebody's like, oh no,
Yeah.
there's nothing. There's just nothing.
Right? I'm like, that's actually, there's like way more evidence that there is something else out there. We just don't know, exactly what, then there's nothing. Yeah, which is still a belief. To believe in nothing is still a belief. We are going to pick a belief no matter what that belief is, and we're all going to, so that's I guess the Sagittarius principle, and every single one of us beliefs are going to be there. So anyways, yeah, very interested and open. I will say, like, when I was a little girl, my biggest fear was that I was going to be abducted by aliens. But now I have now I have like a more like, oh, okay, well, why are they inherently, I like remove some of the layers of like, oh, they want to hurt us or whatever. And like, maybe there's like collaborations and who even knows? So I definitely let my mind wander openly.
Oh yeah, I definitely have so many like different little theories in my head. And I think the show Ancient Aliens is silly, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
that
does
kind of
definitely
stuff.
make you think about things a little bit more and think about the stories you've read in the Bible and the stories you've heard in history. And it's like, wow, maybe we're on one big organic spaceship right now. And this is a big
That's
experiment.
essentially, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
That's, it's interesting. I have a lot more and more people like want to talk about like the star seed concept with me, like star seeds, and that's been interesting for me, this concept that like we are, well, from an energy standpoint, energy cannot be destroyed or created, only transformed. So we are infinite energy that is experiencing itself in this form. And we did come from something else, whether that was a former human existence or dust particle from another galaxy. And that's actually something very interesting about the Milky Way galaxy in general, is that the Milky Way galaxy is pretty massive in terms of galaxies out there. The Milky Way galaxy is pretty big and large, with that supermassive black hole in the center. And it's so massive that it's actually I'm going to use the word stealing for lack of a better word, dust and other particles from like the Draco galaxy around us, and it's stealing dust and other particles, so those galaxies can't make stars anymore. And it's like we're taking it into our galaxy. And so it's really interesting to see that like on a physical level, like we are kind of accumulating particles and energy from other galaxies out there, which is kind of this base layer of like a starseed. You came from, Pleiades or whatever, Pleiadian, and so, and that's something that I was like, oh, that's really interesting. The Milky Way galaxy really is absorbing dust from other galaxies.
That is pretty interesting. I didn't know that.
I've done a lot of psychic work, and I have met some people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not probably as many as people out there would like to believe. Everybody wants to think that they're special, so you have to factor that in, right? But some people's souls, from like a psychic standpoint, are not normal human souls. They're definitely not. I can't say that they're for sure aliens. I'm sure maybe that's a possibility. But they're not normal. Like they're just, I couldn't explain it if you asked me to, like, because I don't know how it is for other people, but the way I get psychic information, it's like an amalgamation of images and feelings and senses. I don't know, like it's, you kind of just translate the gibberish to create something tangible. But there's, there's definitely something out there. I mean, I can't, if somebody says like they're a starseed, I mean, I can't disprove it. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Same thing with ancient aliens. I suspect something was probably done. I mean, we mess with our own DNA. Like we're not going to go to another planet at some point and start like tampering with it. That's just, we'll do that immediately. That'll be one of the first things that we do. So to think that some other, whether they're, like interdimensional or extraterrestrial, I mean, I guess that's up for debate, but, like for sure somebody did something.
Like, wouldn't we all be from somewhere else anyway? I mean, we're
Well,
all in
yeah.
little containers. We're all, I mean, I think that some souls are here to just come in and out of Earth, but like not all of them. Well, that's a whole nother actually show or conversation. I'm sure that's
like in Hinduism, and like that's a wide swath of, I'm generalizing grossly, but depending on who you talk to, there's like different planets that people go to when they die and incarnate back into. Like it's not like it's a whole big multiverse from the Hindu perspective. So, you're not limited to just earth bodies or human bodies or whatever.
Yeah, it is really fascinating to get into, and something else that this could be an interesting conversation as well, but just that, I feel like I consistently meet people who will, I've met like several Jesuses, and I say that like gently, where it's like, I can't prove that you weren't, like I can't prove that you weren't, or just this idea. And so maybe it's like an archetypal memory in all of us that we have of some of these like really key, that you were a king in a past life, or that we're all coming from like this stance of, significance. And it's like, I should say the reason I got into astrology so deeply myself is because I had such a hard time understanding who I am. I have this like consistent questioning of who I am. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, I was probably just like someone who like worked in the market or something. I don't know. But it's interesting.
Most of us had very uneventful lives. Yes.
Yeah. I did a past life regression, and they just showed me like, I wasn't shit. There wasn't any like awesome, like, I didn't see that.
I did one, and we were like literally just picking up rocks. Like, okay, what's going on? Like, we're literally just picking up rocks. But I'd be more inclined to believe that regression and like those things that you experience, other than like, yeah, I was on the Titanic. I've heard so many people be like, oh, I was on the Titanic.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I heard someone actually straight face say, remember the mom with the two little kids, the Irish mom and her little kids, and they like, were in the third class. That was me. I was that little boy. Like, that's like an actor. Who even knows? I mean, some of those people were probably real, but that's not even. Yes.
But what I think too is sometimes we're preloaded with these conceptions and these things when we're born here, and to kind of steer us toward a different path. Sometimes those aren't real memories. That's what I think. I don't know. I've been trying to get down with my guides a little bit more, and sometimes I feel like they will show you something to steer you in a different direction. Not that it's real, not that they're faking you out, but it's just a part of the show. It's part of the life.
Evolution of energy.
Yeah, because how many Marilyn Monroes are we gonna find?
Hold on though, there is something to that. Okay, so listen, I know you guys have seen the celebrity images where I'm trying to think of some, but I'm not good at like the celebrity names. There's like Will Ferrell and that guy that looks just like there's Margot Robbie and the one that looks just like her. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the
Okay.
doppelganger things or
Yes.
whatever.
Well, there's this concept and I wholeheartedly get behind it. I have lots of evidence because again, I've been doing psychic readings for like too long, you guys. But basically it's this concept called split incarnation. So when you don't necessarily just reincarnate into the one body, and this would explain not just like why genetically, like, or, you know, physically your appearance looks so similar, but a lot of these people live like almost identical lives. Despite being born, like they're not related, they're born on like other side of the country. I mean, what is it? It's like the Reincarnation Institute. That's definitely not what it's called, but I'm just like making up that term. But there's like the institute that studies all the reincarnation cases. We'll talk about it. It's really cool. So anybody, if you guys like want to check it out, or anybody listening to this now or later, like definitely look into it. It's really interesting. But there's I think that accounts for at least some of the people who say they're Marilyn Monroe. But to me, like you gotta look like a little bit like Marilyn Monroe. I met a dude who I swear to God, he was actually in my dojo. Spitting image of Hitler. Spitting image, like complete, like side by side comparison. They're the same guy. So I mean,
I feel like Hitler's chart is like top, like one of the top chart, or like at least in like the books and stuff. I'm like, Hitler's always a chart that's like analyzed.
I've actually never looked at his chart before.
Yeah, you have. We did it in the course. We looked at Hitler's
chart.
We did it? Yeah.
Oh, but it wasn't, he was hidden. We didn't know it was Hitler.
That's right. You didn't know at the time. Because
we didn't know at the time, so
that's right. Because when you know,
we didn't read him as this genocidal monster.
I think I think we looked at Donald Trump's chart too, didn't we? That might have been one of the bonus ones.
I don't think we did. Maybe we did.
What's very interesting is if you don't know, if you like take some megalomaniacs or, you know, some super uber famous person, Jim Jones, or who knows, you know, like pick a serial killer or whatever. If you don't know who that is and you look at their chart, you will not see any of that crazy stuff. You will not see their murderous tendencies. You won't see any of it. It's not there.
Not at all. Not at all. I had I was telling Abby, I got my my dad's birth chart information. I finally looked him up, and like you know, we always have somebody that, you know, in our family, right, that we just butt heads with. So I expected to see all this shit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna see like where, you know, his alcoholism came from, where all of this stuff, like I just thought it's all going to be there, and it wasn't. It was there, the energy there wasn't overwhelmingly negative. I didn't, you know, I had a hard time seeing, you know, we always attribute, you know, Neptune to addictions. There wasn't an afflicted Neptune at all. So I mean, there's a lot of little things in there that I was like, oh, I was expecting to see Satan. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean, you know.
Totally.
So,
totally. I've worked with, I don't know if anyone, well, I mean, I have worked with twins before. So two people born with the same birth chart. You know, that's one of the points that people kind of come at astrology where it's like, well, how do you explain, you know, twins? They're different people. And it is kind of the touching on what we're discussing, or I worked with both of these individuals and the chart dynamics, which are, again, in my mind, like, okay, this fundamental kind of basis of energy, but how you co-create and express that energy can go in a lot of different ways based off of your experiences in life. Like we have our nature, we have our genetics. Okay, here's what we're working with, but our experiences can just really shift how something is channeled. And you know, on that note as well, I think these two individuals, like being souls, are coming in with like this innate different memory from things that have happened before in their energy that was like into quantum entanglement of like coming in with different layers of trauma, if you will, karmic lessons to learn that then also take that person into expressing the chart differently. So that was like a really interesting exploration. I was so jazzed when I got to work with twins.
Oh my God, that is so
It,
cool.
it is
I know
interesting.
twins, and I've actually the family I know with their twins. They're highly psychic. They're highly in tune folks, and and they remember in past lives, like one of the twins and the sister being twins. Like they take turns because they're
Yeah.
so close. They're close siblings, and I'm just thinking like, well, I can't just like, that sounds pretty cool. I was like, I always wanted a twin.
There's a
But
method.
I wonder.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Nikki. Sorry.
Oh no, I was finished.
Oh, okay. There's a method, Danielle, I don't know if you've tried this, where you look at so like when twins are born, basically like within minutes of each other. And there's not even like no change in the star beneath or above the horizon, nothing like that. Where you take the chart from the midheaven to the Imam Chali, and then one twin is basically the one side and the other twin is the other side. I've had success doing it that way. That's not I didn't come up with that. I don't know who came up with it. I just was like, looked, trying stuff out to see what worked. It did shed some additional light on those. And it kind of also explains why, like one twin will be really outgoing, but the other one's like really shy. And, so next time, try that out.
Fascinating. I have not heard of that. That system before, to also analyze like the two pieces, if you will, that. And so I'm actually, I kind of want to go back to knowing both of those two and go look at their chart and see, because there was this kind of more like forward facing, confident one, if you will, and then there was one that was more like behind the scenes, like more questioned herself and was reserved. So fascinating. I hadn't heard of that approach.
Yeah, try it out. Now, I haven't worked with enough twins to be able to really verify it.
Same.
Like I basically do it the way you explained. Like these are the energies, but what you do with it is, going to be different. And depending on your experiences, did mom give you more hugs? Like what, there's slight things in here that might change things up, but so yeah, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
Hold on. Malia Norby in the chat says, I have twin daughters and this is such a big question for me. Well, hopefully we answered that then, or gave you at least some insight on that. And then look up astrology. Oh, look up -astrology. Yeah, says Lori, I believe it is. I've heard it's like being half of the whole, who there is a lot of polarity in the differences. So yeah, so try it out, you guys, in the video, like watching, like try that out and see what you get. As for, is it who's on which half? Do we do like first twin gets one half and the other half? I don't know for sure. When I've done my twin readings, I've had to ask, like, okay, one of you guys is like this, the other one's like this. Which one are you? And they're like, oh, it's definitely I'm this one, but I can't say, if that's across the board, first or second born. Yeah.
We should.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're like, this is kind of what I want, well, I hope and I imagine we're heading into in the future with astrology and this bridging of, again, just to kind of touch on quantum physics, it's like, different light frequencies produce different biological responses in our bodies. Blue light, the presence of blue light in the atmosphere is what triggers our pineal gland to produce serotonin or melatonin to wake us up, go to sleep. And anyways, now that like science is kind of bridging this, it's laying a foundation to be like, okay, maybe I can see how certain patterning of the stars and the photonic data could influence my experience. Like I want maybe more studies done with astrology. Like let's get all those twins and do a study on like that principle and like get some actual like data. I think could be really cool to see that emerging in the field.
That will require more open-minded astrologers, which clearly we're all on board with that. There's actually not as many out there as you guys would think.
Yeah. Collaboration is how, well, in my mind, is how we learn. And so, yeah, hopefully we're headed there. with all these new ideas coming about, to be more open-minded. I feel like that would be good for almost all areas of our life.
Agreed.
So,
Speaking of
Yeah.
collaboration, oh, sorry, Nikki, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Gary O'Toole. He put it perfectly when he said, "It seems we're all speaking different languages, but we're all doing the same thing, saying the same things, and finding the different ways of, taking different paths, but reaching the same destination."
mhm,
Yeah,
Yes.
it was very interesting.
mhm.
Yes, definitely. Okay, guys, speaking of, let's jump in here. Let's take a look at the upcoming week. So what do we have here? Today is the 23rd, according to my desktop computer. And we're going to go out to the 29th, right? Yes, I believe so. Can you guys see my screen right now? Are you seeing the right screen?
Mhm.
Stellarium, yes, confirm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Confirmed. Yes.
All right. All right, so I will, I guess, go first because I normally do, unless somebody else wants to go first. Does anybody, like, I don't know, I just normally do. Does anybody care? Like, anybody want to take a look at this first?
I wrote a few things down, but you go ahead first.
Okay.
Got some
I like
ideas
your.
as well.
I love when you
And
talk
some-
about the constellations and the stories and everything. Like, it's
Okay.
like my favorite time.
Oh, okay. Well, it's story time
Abby's
then.
story time. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. So I heard last week we were talking about everybody talking about the sun moving into Libra. It's kind of still in Virgo. I think this whole space though we could see this as Libra. But this, so originally this lady here was not lying down with her head inconveniently placed behind the tail of the lion. Rather, there was one standing up here and there was one standing down here, and she was holding a shaft of wheat or some sort of, food product. And that was the start right here. So technically this was still within the furrow in the frond, which was the original version of Virgo. I would say that the sun is still in Virgo, but that's me. If we want to do it like the 30-degree division or whatever house system you're using, you got to do what works for you. So anytime that the sun is in here, obviously in the northern hemisphere, that means that it's going to be the quote unquote harvest season, unless you're obviously in the Mesopotamian regions. We're just coming out of the deadly summertime period, and then you're going to start doing all of your your farming and whatnot. In the southern hemisphere, this is going to be moving into the summertime too. So it's springtime. So keep that in mind, anytime we have Virgo energy though, it's still a process. We're in transition between like the hot time or the cold time. It's one way or the other, whether it's going, reverse or direct, it's kind of up to you. I would say though that the sun is very well positioned here in Virgo, this close to Spica. This is a health wealth star. It is an extremely bright star. And it does relate to Virgo herself, relates to the physical body and the Mother Earth, and thus as a macrocosmic aspect of the individual, she's going to relate to your body, your health, and your ability to feed yourself, and thus your job and everything. So close connections, any type of strong interaction we have with Spica always promotes physical healing, cleaning up debts, handling your job, getting a new job if you're looking. So this is a great time to focus on all of that physical stuff. Now, the Mercury here in Libra, for those of you who don't know, these were the claws of the scorpion. They did not become scales until much later. There was a little back and forth at some period, but this was just one giant scorpion. As a matter of fact, this portion of Scorpio, this was the breast of the scorpion, and it was kind of closer to the head, and they've shrunk things down a little bit. But these were her claws, and the claws were meant to grab things and pull them apart, pin down your prey so you can eat it. Excuse me. And then, eat shovel the little scorpion food into your face. So scorpions are relatively solitary hunters, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot for us because human beings are social animals or creatures, humans, whatever. And we need each other. We need to interact with the tribe and the community. So that is where a lot of this socializing comes out of Libra. This is socializing for survival more so than anything else. Yes, there is an element to like civility in here. We don't necessarily want to hurt people's feelings, but this isn't coming from a place of like, oh, I just love balance and I just want to get along. It's really more about I need to survive. Yeah, I need to survive. Like if I piss you off, you could hurt me, or not. I might not be able to buy my food from you. I mean, there's things that
Yeah.
go along with living in a polite society. So that's really what's going on here. The great news about Mercury is very similar to the original meanings. Mercury here is going to help us, whether or not it's going direct or retrograde. It is going to make it easier to listen to the people in our environment. For better or worse. If you have a career, Libra is a really strong entrepreneurial placement. This does make it easier to read your audience, connect to your whoever it is that you're trying to communicate with. Now, if you have a relationship where things are going awry and you're not, communicating so well, this is a good time to like work on that, because it will promote your ability to like reach that common ground between the two of you, especially with Venus very close to Antares. So Antares was, as I said, the breast of the scorpion, but she was known as the Lisi goddess, not the whole scorpion, just the star in particular. She was the embodiment of this goddess Lisi, and she was known to be able to soothe the hearts of angry deities. So when it was, when the comets were decimating the earth and whatnot, they would pray to her to try to settle things down and get the gods back on humanity's side. So strong Antares in a chart, and I know if I'm not mistaken, both Nikki and Fryer have this. You tend to draw people in who are really broken and damaged or really in need of help. That's not a great way to go through life if you're not positioned for it, because that means you will just get the life sucked out of you. You're gonna be surrounded by like, addicts and narcissists and just like really broken people. Now, some people that's great because they're ready to handle that. Other people, not so much. So it's not always a bad thing. Danielle, we were talking about Ophiuchus being very medicinal and related to like medicine and healing. This side of Ophiuchus is very much related to the counseling aspect of the healing, whereas on this side, we're going to get more of that like the hands-on healing aspect. So Venus over here really increases our empathic connection. Venus is going to be the heart, for better or worse, whether that's bliss or desperation, rage. I mean, it can go in a lot of different directions. But this connects us more to the people around us, the people we're working with. And anytime while Venus is in this area, and I don't know how long is this going for. Hold on. No. I mean, she's going to back up here too. She's going to swing back a little bit, but we'll probably miss the Antares conjunction again. But this is going to go for a while, at least the next week. We'll probably be getting it right until the 1st. This can make us much more sensitive to the people around us. So if you're getting agitated and, pissed off by the people around you, there's a really good chance that you could be tuning into other people's stuff. For one, you could be picking up on other people's emotions, or there could be some deeper like festering in your own heart region that needs to be worked on. So in other words, you're the damaged person this time and you're the one who needs like the help and needs to kind of work on the stuff. So depending on how you're feeling, that's basically what's going on. Those are really the big movers right now. We're obviously not going to look at the moon because he's just whipping around here very, very quickly. Mars is making its way out of Gemini into Cancer over the next week. It's going to be in this void portion. They're very similar in Mesopotamia, except what I would say is, so this was the gate of the underworld, and Mars was the king of the underworld. So this, when he's in Cancer, that's him right at home. And honestly, that's kind of a good place for him. That's where he's doing it with his consort, like nonstop. He is not out there warring. He's not, his weapons aren't trying to talk him into going and slaughtering people. So it's not a bad place. But sometimes we can get way more internalized. Nobody likes to talk about the cognitive aspect of Mars. It's definitely in there. It is the ego. It will, it's the subjective mind, and it can eat itself. So this could be a much more internalized time while this is happening. I would say the Gemini portion is similar, except it's much more emotional. Now, I know you guys have different takes on this, and I would love to hear them. Jupiter's still hanging out in the Hyades over here. So if you guys haven't gone outside to look at these stars, like Jupiter's gorgeous right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up. Nikki, Danielle, who wants to go next?
Well, I wrote a few things down because I was looking at the charts. I like have my own, like I have a really hard time just looking at this, and I like to look at the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
So what inspired me this morning was I had the weirdest dream, and Daniel, we were talking about dreams too, and I'll save it for later, but I really feel like the moon moving into Gemini opposing Pluto. We have it close to Mars today. I think like
Yeah, in a couple
be
hours.
gone by tomorrow, but I think it can produce a little bit of anxiety. We're in that last quarter phase of this cycle too, and that was at its peak conjunct Chiron and Eris. So, I mean, this has been a very deeply emotional cycle, really tearing away all the layers of, you know, what is your, you know, revealing a lot about your true character. It hits the end of this cycle, this quarter cycle. I feel like there might be a little bit of anxiety today, maybe a little bit tomorrow. I feel like Moon and Mars, depending on where you're sitting at mentally. I mean, you could fly off the handle. You could have a great day. Saturn, I like to look at Saturn and I like to know what he's up to and what he's doing. And I agree with what you said, Abby. He's trining Mercury, and Mercury and Saturn and the Moon actually are trying today. And I feel that's like really good information coming through, really like stability, like, you know, hold on, get all the facts, don't, you know, fly off the handle. You know, we got Mercury and Libra. She can go either way. We know Libra likes to test things before they actually find balance. You know, I think the Saturn square Venus too. Oh my God. I recently experienced this. I know it's a short, you know, transit, but I mean, I think it can cause some disappointments financially, you know, maybe love life, you know, that those types of things. You get the square challenge and you're going to definitely run into some issues. So me personally, I just got a bill in the mail yesterday for like $500 for my old phone carrier.
That's not
like
fun.
Surprise. Oh my God. And I went there too. I'd gone there like 2 weeks ago and was like, I owe you money. I'm here to pay you money. And they're like, you don't owe us anything. I just got like punched in the face with that bill yesterday, and I'm looking at the transits, and I'm like, I wonder if it's that. So that, yeah, that's. I know. I'm sorry. I'm a little out there. I'm a little everywhere, but yeah, that's what I got.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it there. Actually.
Okay. Danielle,
Sorry.
do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been for some reason I find myself like really maybe because again full moon baby, but oppositions just really capture my interest. And so, you know, this last week there was an opposition between Venus and Uranus that broke. But as I think is another kind of popular transit that's being shared out there right now is the Mars-Pluto opposition. I don't know. So in traditional Sumerian astrology, like Pluto obviously probably wasn't considered or read just because it wasn't discovered until 1930.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm not sure your perspective on this, Abby, but I just did a whole, you know, workshop on Pluto and this Mars-Pluto opposition that's actually been building right now and is going to come exact, I think, this week and then break in the coming weeks. And not only, you know, this opposition that's taking place, but now, yeah, there it is. And look, Chiron, there's even showing Chiron and also the other moons. Like, isn't it weird that Pluto has 5 moons? Like, it's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But
Especially
anyway,
since they bumped it down to, it's not, do they call it a minor planet now? Like they don't even consider it a planet anymore.
Yeah, I feel like that's also the nature.
That's wrong. That's just so wrong.
Of what Pluto, you know, Pluto kind of like, is Pluto real or is Pluto not real?
Right.
It's kind of also a connection point to this energy. But, you know, as Mars enters Cancer and as Pluto is going into Capricorn, or, you know, between, should I say, the cusp area, if you will, there is this kind of real push and pull, I do feel, along with the Venus-Uranus opposition that just broke. Kind of like emotional enmeshment. What I've been sharing with people I've been talking with, and I would say how I would co-create and flow with some of these energetic dynamics of the oppositions taking place, is like understanding your emotional enmeshment. We talk about Venus, Venus, where Venus is right now. And Uranus, I believe, is like close to Taurus or in Taurus now. This idea that, like, as humans, we experience this paradox of being connected to other people. Uranus is officially in Taurus. So Mercury is going to oppose Uranus this next week after Venus just did. And so anyways, there's this correlation between how much do you let other people's emotions affect you? And at the end of the day, I do take this stance of our own energy field. Like when you are in a state of peace, when you are in a state of like being talked about, so maybe some higher Taurus principles of like security, stable, feeling safe, got all your needs taken care of. When you're in this state of peace and stability in your energy field, you're actually like the most helpful to those around you. And like this concept of Uranus maybe revolutionizing this area of our lives has been opposing Venus, and now Mercury, and then the sun will then oppose Uranus. Actually, for this upcoming full moon in November, there will be a moon Uranus alignment, full moon opposition. And so this energy that I'm talking about is just going to kind of be alive for me. I want, maybe people to ask themselves, like, when do I let my peace be disrupted by someone else's emotional state? Like something that happens externally about me. Someone else is in crisis. Someone's maybe upset at me. We have this Mars-Pluto opposition taking place, this kind of push and pull between the shadow and the warrior of our own emotions, since it's heading into Cancer. And this real invitation to flow with this vibrational dynamic by way of challenging yourself to not let your inner peace and security be, thrown off because of someone else's emotions in your environment. And how can you kind of, bring it back and know that we're also here to experience ourselves as separate from other people. Like we're connected and we're separate. It's paradox of being human. And we can pull it back in. We're like the controller of this internal world of ours. And so we get that opportunity to say, I'm gonna keep my peace. And I feel like those with strong Taurus placements in their chart, like a strong relationship with Taurus, just naturally maybe know this, and like it's almost like not my circus, not my monkeys kind of principle. And so from like a psychological standpoint, from maybe managing our own lives, like that's something I've been really sharing with these oppositions, Mars-Pluto opposition, and then Venus, Mercury, Sun opposing Uranus and Taurus with this department. And when we're stable, when we're secure in our sense of self, we can then use that, have those conversations, cooperate, collaborate with that Mercury and Libra from a better stance, rather than like abandoning ourselves because someone else wants us to do something and now we're like people pleasing or whatever, or fighting. It's like, wow, okay, you get to really dictate this inner world, and there's like this energy alive. So that's an invitation, I suppose, for some of this energy that I'm seeing and reading with the oppositions present. And on, we can even talk about the sun being in that part of Virgo as like your overall health, these layers of your health. If you're letting your emotional disposition be stirred by someone else's emotions around you or someone else's crisis, then it's like that's disrupting your health. And really, like, you're the one in charge of your own health here. You're the one in charge of your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical plane. And like, let that Uranus and Taurus maybe like revolutionize and be innovative, and like kind of let you do it a new way, learn a new system, a better system of like, okay, I'm gonna stay in my peace, and I get to choose that for myself, and gosh darn it, I'm going to choose it for myself.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The sun is still in opposition with Chiron right now too. So, I mean, we still have that grand cross going on with Pluto And Mars, I totally agree. This is a lot about mental health. We've taken in a lot of information. There's a lot of things coming in that like a lot of people are learning about themselves, about their family, about their work. I mean, it's kind of like this buildup moving into Cancer. What are we going to do about it? Cancer is a cardinal sign. So I feel like when Mars and Pluto shift into those cardinal signs, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, this is where the action starts. What are you going to start doing about it? Are you going to sit here and suffer, or are you going to get up and fucking do something about it? You know, it could be that a lot of people are reaching a crossroads. Like, what is best for me, for my mental health, not necessarily what's best for others. I mean, it could be, I mean, Saturn's playing a little bit, in there, but I love that you brought that up with Mars and Pluto, and definitely, I wrote that down too. I feel like it's definitely been, this moon cycle's been like highlighting mental health. What do you need as the individual to keep going and make your life better and improve things? Because Saturn, I mean, I talk about Saturn a lot as if he's in charge of everything, but I mean, really, I mean, he's the guy who's got the list, and he's at the gate, and he's like, we have to check all this shit off. Like, nobody likes to work. That's why Saturn, I think, got a bad rep. I mean, shouldn't say nobody likes to work, but well, I forgot where I was going with this anyway. God bless Saturn.
Saturn. Yes. I love Saturn.
I do too. I absolutely love Saturn. I look at Saturn because I feel like he's Pluto's like right-hand man, you know, like
I do also love Saturn. And I was listening to something that Fryer was sharing in a previous interview about like Saturn retrograde and the unlimited principle with like Saturn in retrograde, which is, I think, actually going to end November 14th-ish, the retrograde of Saturn. But yeah, also a fan of Saturn. Actually, I've heard that a couple times. You're going to master where Saturn's at in your chart. Like, that's energy that's you have the capacity to really master. And like, what a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. In the myth, or one of them, Saturn, who's Ninurta, he actually does the work on behalf of the people. So, but they had to ask him to do it. You know, they're like, hey, Lord Ninurta, you just slayed all these demons, and in the process kind of like crumbled all these mountains and caused hurricanes and whatnot. Like, do you think you could help us out? Like, the land is devastated. And he doesn't hesitate. He just gets up and he handles it for him. He knows exactly what to do, how to do it, and he just goes, he goes right to it. So
in your class, Abby, that was actually one of my favorite stories. So I loved when you told that, because like, I guess Saturn's just chilling, hanging out, and they're like, oh my God, there's demons. And he like gets up, grabs his battle axe, and he's like, I'm gonna go fucking handle this shit.
Yep.
Well, she didn't say that, but I mean, that's how I imagined it, you know, like a 90s, like, movie.
Yes.
And he
just like an action hero. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, he was
of
kind of like,
Mesopotamia.
I was picturing kind of like The Rock.
There you go. Yes. The people's champion. Yeah.
Yeah. See, perfect. That's
right.
Jeez. I know. That's awesome.
Fryer, are you alive?
I'm alive.
Okay. Do you want to take a look at the what's going on in the world of astrology on YouTube this week?
Oh, let's
do it. Let's have a look.
I'm going to share my screen.
Share away.
Sharing is caring.
It is. There's so much love going around right now.
Very, very Mercury and
Libra. Ooh, I love JD's website, by the way. It is so easy to navigate.
Are we looking at JD's website?
Yeah, we're looking at JD's website.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, you've done an amazing. Yeah. Okay.
I have to stop sharing that, clearly.
Yeah. Who knows what comes up after that? We should definitely probably hide it.
I'm actually careful to, put things where they should be.
Right. I hear you.
Fryer does this cool thing with astrology that I don't think maybe he knows what he's doing it, but when you do sessions with him, I feel like he can read your planets. Like he can read your, like, this is your Venus aspect, this is your Mercury aspect, this is your Jupiter aspect. You do that cool thing where you don't even have to like look at their chart, and you can do the psychology stuff around it. I think it's
My take
that
is
it's where your superpowers.
there's a very large psychological, or you could also say inner component to it. And I could say so many words about that, but thank you.
Do you use intuition when you do it, Friar?
Not
Do you
really.
think? No, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. He's like, no, I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
He was very
how,
sure.
how about instead of putting a hard stop on that, I would say that there are ways in which I am responding to certain things that are brought up, because I do a lot of listening, right? I mean, that's my primary thing, is that I want to hear what you had to say. And then clearly certain things will come up in these conversations. And
Okay.
I might say, well, that makes me think of this aspect of Eitz Chaim or whatever. And we might focus on that strictly because a person might be having a hard time with being assertive. So would we look at Mars? Of course. Or a person might be having a problem in the realm of imagination. And so we might look at the moon.
Okay,
So-
but hold on. So yes,
okay.
I get what you're saying.
Great.
You
Okay.
you listen, and then you deduce what we probably need to do. You're diagnosing, astrologically or whatever, the energies and whatnot. But you
Sure.
never get you never get images of, like grandpa kicked you a lot when you were little, and like I think that this is leading to this, or I hear I can smell your grandma's cookies that you're like, you don't get intuitive or psychic impressions when you're listening to people.
Well, I'll put it this way. If that starts happening, I need to work on myself. That's what I think. Because at that point, I am starting to, well, how do I put this? I didn't initiate that, right? I didn't do a ritual. I did not decide to explore talismanic images or anything like
Okay.
that. So this is being imposed upon me. It could be being imposed upon me from various directions, but I say to that, Ekas, este bibloi, get the fuck out of my head.
Okay, hold on. We do not have time for this conversation today, but
I love this because I've seen your chart, and that's totally you.
You just opened up a giant conversation about so much stuff. We're definitely going to have to retake this a different day. We'll table it for now because it is a much bigger conversation. But that's interesting. I've never heard a single human being in my entire life say like getting psychic information or intuitive information while listening to another human being talk. Like I'm like, no, I'm casting you out like you're some sort of demonic force. But that's interesting. I dig it. I would like to know more.
That's good mental control, though. I absorb people's garbage all the time, and I got to catch myself and be like, ugh.
That's part of it. It's part of my psychic hygiene, if you will. And also for me in particular, that's a danger. So
Okay.
I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but I'm saying for me in particular, I really need to be careful about that, because I will absorb all kind of fucking astral nasties.
I gotcha.
And that needs to not happen. So yeah, that's when I want to listen to what a person has to say with their actual face meets, and
right.
Then I take that information and I will look at the structures with which I am familiar and say, okay, well, this is where what you've told me seems to fall on this structure, and therefore on this structure we can look at this and this and this. And that's one of the reasons I like the systems that I use, is because it's very Western in so much as, this system basically says all is God, God's everything, everything's God, and there's all these different aspects and powers of God, and we can slice and dice pretty much anything into the different pieces of God. And that's a very Western thing to do, right? Is to try to disassemble the whole and then look at the discrete pieces. And so in a way, that's what I'm doing on a spiritual level. So that's, I could say lots of words, but that's largely what I do. I listen, and then I try to take a look at the system that I'm best familiar with and say, well, this leads me to think that maybe this is out of balance, or this is wholly lacking, or this is just way too much in your life, and how can we maybe balance that? It's a stepping stone, it's a stepping off, it's a method of inquiry, it's a way to look at things inside a person that are very slippery and are not easily grasped, and to give them a language. And we all have our language.
Yes.
So that's what's happening. I hope that wasn't too much or too little.
Nope. It was beautiful. Love it.
Yes.
So,
All right, what's going on?
all right. Rare mini grand
The
luck
new moon
time.
isn't going to be in Scorpio. It's going to be in Virgo. on
Well, not
November.
according to Molly McCord. You got to take it up with
Oh, Molly, she's always popping up on my. I don't have anything against Molly or anybody, you know.
Molly McButter.
I'm tired of being lied to, though. Like, I see it messing with me, and then I'll think it because I'm like, oh, I should follow. I follow enough sidereal astrologers. I thought it would pop up.
They don't
Sorry.
really. There's actually not that many. It's really not.
No,
I know, because I've tried to reach out to most of them, and it's slim. There's like a lot of people who like made a few videos a while ago, and then like they just dropped off. So, but there's like not a lot of active sidereal astrologers, and some of the ones there are, they tend to. Now I don't know. Maybe this is just how I see it, but it seems like they make a lot of excuses for the tropical system. Like I don't know if they feel like they have to in order to get views and clients and stuff, but. If there's any sidereal astrologers out there, like take it from me, like take a stand and just stop. Like we got to quit feeding into us, like the matrix, like the system, it's not a thing.
It's not really magical. There's nothing magic about somebody telling you to look at this point in the sky and follow this table of fucking coordinates. And then you'll find out where your planet was. But I was like, what the hell? What is this? Like, I don't know. It just robs it of its validity.
It disconnects you from what's really happening around you. Like it's in nature. Like that's not good.
I mean, you can look at it and say, oh, well, it's just the future. I don't think that. I don't. Yeah. It's nice that you're reading.
Yeah. Why do we need to read like a month from now? Really like let's just connect to the sky. I don't know, you guys. I walk my dogs at like 1:00 in the morning. I see the sky, especially in the wintertime. We don't get it. We only get a few hours of daylight here in the winter. And like I see the sky a lot. It's really hard to unsee, like the actual sky. Like go out, look at the stars, and like see where stuff's at. I just don't get it. I don't know I'll ever get it, but we're trying. Look at that! What? It's Sidereal Astrology, Myth, Magic, Mysteries, and More with special guest Danielle Krey.
I know. Look at
came
those
right up. What did you just searched astrology? Oh, you didn't private. That's why it already knows your habits. If you were to do like an incognito, it probably wouldn't have come up. But I'm just so glad that it did. Like, we'll take it.
Number 3.
Yeah, I'll live in that fantasy for a minute. That makes me feel good. Scorpio season.
Oh, that's right. Because remember, Danny said every 22nd of the month it changes. It's a new season.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, it was the 22nd yesterday, so Scorpio season.
Scorpio season.
Scorpio season, everybody. What does that mean, satire-wise? Everyone's gonna get laid, right?
Yes.
Maybe.
I hope. And the world would chill out, and we wouldn't have all these wars. And oh, sorry, I'm just
Again.
Yeah, man.
That's funny. I feel like when people say, it's Scorpio season, it's like, no, well, and to be fair, if you're not an astrologer, why would you? But where it's like, no one really knows what that means. Like, why is it Scorpio season? Just because it's this time. But it's like, where's the sun in the sky? But then, of course, when you look at that, it's not actually in Scorpio.
Nope, sure isn't.
And so, yeah, and it is interesting, kind of talking about the constellation, the stars, as you guys were a moment ago, seeing the stars. I take a lot of night walks myself. I've been staring at Jupiter every single night recently. And I kind of like to share, when describing our connection to the other constellations, it's almost like if this, again, mirroring of the quantum, it's like if each one of us is a neuron in a brain, it's like we are neurons firing with all other neurons. And I do have this principle of each one of us is this essence of light, conscious experiencer here. And so like by really looking at the constellations, it's like we're honoring our connection to like other sources of information, whether it's like in a brain, you're like, we're connecting to other neurons, or like you're a person, you're connecting to other consciousness sources. And so like that principle of really seeing the stars as this these significant forces too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
It's definitely been a mind-body connection time, like getting rooted and getting connected and yeah, I totally. What was that about the Vedic is a scam?
I saw that.
would-
That's so funny. I just saw
I
that
would
too.
totally
Boy, oh boy.
I don't know Vedic, but I talked to Gary and Gary sounds like he knows what he's doing. And yeah,
I have
how
issues
many
with
clicks did she get? 35?
she doesn't have a lot, but I do have some issues with Vedic
Oh, it's
astrology. I've probably talked about them at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a scam. I wouldn't say it's a scam. I would
No.
say it gets too specific. In which case your predictions and your descriptions
Yeah.
become too specific, and I don't think astrology is meant to be like that. And it does have a lot of cultural bias that's superimposed on it. And I mean, we're talking about like South India, there's different schools, and it's not quite as consistent. But that's my take. It's not a scam, it's definitely not a scam.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't gotten into it. I really wanted to, but it's like one rabbit hole after another. You
gotta stick with couple of handful of rabbit holes at a time.
Yeah. Otherwise you're just tumbling and then you don't even remember where you started. How you got there.
These don't look too scary. I thought we were dangerous time. I spoke too soon.
Joni.
It's Joni.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Trump's astrology chart exposed. He's been exposed, you guys.
Oh my goodness.
I
and
know.
again,
Oh my God.
he wouldn't be exposed. If you didn't know it was Donald Trump's chart, you would have no idea. You would just think you were looking at anybody else's chart.
This guy,
it's the best chart. Amazing
I
chart.
just saw this guy
Just ask me. I know charts.
wearing suspenders. I was doing my sister's hair, or not my daughter's hair. I was doing my daughter's hair, just watching TikToks. And there he is. He goes like, Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's. It's a lie. And here I am working at McDonald's. And I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, what the?
He is entertaining. Final astrology predict.
That's
Oh,
old.
that's for the election. That's not like right now. What's that one?
No.
Each zodiac and what demon possesses you? Is that what that said?
Is that
Oh my
what
God.
it said?
Where? I
I'm
need
excited.
to know.
Reveals monsters hiding inside each of us. Oh, okay.
Hey, cool.
I like that.
You're like,
That's
that
exciting.
looks good. Oh, they got a ton of
Yeah,
views.
I've
It's
got
4
a
years
monster
old.
Yes, it's old.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the problem. So I clicked on like, most recent, and it was like a ton of Arabic and Indian stuff that was not in English. And I was like, oh man. Okay.
No worries.
So,
That is interesting though.
Yeah.
What
the
are
election.
you guys? What are the
much.
YouTube astrologers saying about who's going to win the election? I'm just curious.
It's I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people are leaning toward Kamala Harris. But
Really?
I'm not sure if it's just because that's what they want.
Okay.
I mean, I think sometimes what I'm seeing is so many astrologers have tried to read the charts and tried to predict and have said it's going to be this, it's going to be that. But there's been so many twists and turns that they're like, okay, I know I said this and this is what happened and it wasn't what I predicted. And I just don't think this election, I think it's going to be a wacky, wonky time.
Trump's
is going to win.
I'm not going to go through the charts. I don't have, because I'm going to see I'm way too much, like I follow geopolitics way too much. I'm just calling it now so you guys can come back and watch the video later, but Trump's for sure going to win, probably by a ridiculous amount. Okay. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm on the record saying it. But one of the reasons why they're looking at both charts again, and they can't get a clear answer, is because astrology isn't meant to predict stuff like that in the way that they're trying to do it.
Yeah,
It's very,
I
very
agree
difficult.
with that. I don't think we can look at a chart and say this is exactly what's going to happen. Now, I've had visions, I've had dreams, I've had shit like that come out to be exact. Explain that. You know, you can't. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, though, who can look at a chart and say, I think this is what's going to happen. And it
Can I
could be
also
right.
say it's like really interesting for the United States that we are going through our Pluto return.
So, oh my God, right?
From this, if you use the 1776 like Declaration of Independence as that like date, which there's some disagreements around
I
that.
think
But
it's a good
anyways,
date.
Pluto, yeah, exactly. Pluto didn't move that far. So Pluto has like returned and is actually even maybe a degree or two forward of like we are starting a new cycle here as United States in this like transformational process, evolutionary process that Pluto is associated with. And so it is interesting to me and Abby, I too have heard or the sense that, it's going to be Trump, and it's just I'm very interested to see what happens with our political system in general in the coming times with some of this happening for sure. And Abby, I'm curious, actually, if you don't mind sharing, do you have a different approach to like that predictive conclusion that you drew on Trump winning by a lot? Like, was that your intuition or like how? Yeah.
No, I'm a politics junkie. Like I
Yeah.
study that stuff. I was in the military. Like I know too much. So it's hard
Yeah.
because, and this is the same thing. If you put Hitler's chart up and you just hand it to an astrologer and they don't know who they're looking at, they're not going to see any of that crazy stuff. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. If you know the person, the chart that you're reading, you're gonna validate the things you already know. So I don't think it's fair for me to jump on because I'm gonna pick out the stuff. I'm gonna be like, yep, this is what's happening right now. And I just don't think it's fair to do that. But he's for sure. And I can give you guys like I almost think it's silly for right now for astrologers to even give their predictions without knowing this other stuff going on. Like it's too much. There's so many. You guys definitely don't care about
there's
them.
there's a lot of world stuff going on that they do not report on our news. So there's a lot of things that we don't really know about that are, United States is involved in. And politically, I mean, I politically, I think if I had not, looking at charts, anything, I probably would predict that Trump would win if that doesn't happen. I think there's going to be some kind of unrest. I mean, maybe civilly, maybe globally, we're going to be stepping into, I don't want to say, war, but we're stepping into some kind of conflict.
The
We've got
time
shit
of
on the
unrest is well underway. It's been underway for,
Yeah.
and again, that could very well be the Pluto
Yeah,
return.
I mean, we could see we could see maybe possibly a Trump win, but then we declare war and then we keep, our current administration. There could be a lot of different things that happen. There could be a lot. It just twists and turns all around.
Yes.
I think. I don't really know. I don't really want to know, but
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Look up astrology in the chat. Lori, she said, I asked her, she said, I used the Sky app on my phone for like 15 years when I took an astronomy class, but that's what got me to make the switch when we were talking about going to Sidereal. She says she uses star chart. Nikki, I'm not sure which one you use. And then she said the photos are really pretty. She said Pam Gregory used to be one of my favorites. I don't know who that is, you guys, but I don't get out, so you'll have to forgive me.
She's quite popular.
Okay. I trust all of your judgment on this. She says, but I can't now that I'm using tropical. She said half the people aren't happy either way with the election. Yeah, that's true. And then Lorna's Adventures After 50. Are there apps or software where you can follow the changes of the signs over the past 3,000 years? Nikki, you have you can do that stuff with Stellarium, but what's the app that you use, Nikki?
Well, I have a few different apps. So I do have Stellarium on my phone, but it's called Sky Tonight is another good one. It's easier to navigate than Stellarium. I don't know, for some reason I have an issue with Stellarium and its settings, and It's probably me, but a Cosmic Watch is another one. And I like Cosmic Watch because it has all of the different settings where you can show somebody the tropical band around the globe and where those planets are, but then you can, flip it and you'll see where the actual constellations are and how they don't line up. And what I don't like about that app is that you cannot add any more asteroids. You can't add anything. I haven't figured out how to. So it's just the meat and potatoes there, but it's a great app to have if you're like in the middle of a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh, I'm a Capricorn. You're like, no, you're not. And you look it up and show it to them. And it's a pretty good tool for that. But, Sky Tonight, I like a little bit better on my phone than I do. And I'm not sure if it'll go back 3,000 years. So that's the thing. I haven't traveled back in time. I'm usually looking ahead, or I don't know, within the last 100 years or so. Not 3,000, but
Stellarium
those
will
are
let
some
you
good
go
ones.
back about 12,000, but then the ecliptic starts to get wonky because of the equations they're using and stuff. But it's still pretty good. Probably not the phone app, but I do everything on my computer. I'm almost never on my phone. I am right now because I'm looking at the chat. Which thank you guys, everybody, for being in the chat today. Thanks for interacting with us. You guys had great questions. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes.
Yes. Come back and talk about
Fine.
solar flares. We wanted to talk about
Oh
those
yeah,
solar flares
absolutely.
that were happening, and
Man.
There's so much.
dreams.
Yes, there's so much we could still talk
Yes.
about.
Yeah, 100%. I loved it. Thank you for having me. Thanks everyone who joined, and absolutely will stay in touch with, I'm curious who else you have, the other sidereal astrologers out there that you find. And
I'm running low. I have like 3 more and I think that's it. Like I don't know who else to
So
call.
I do want to put this out there. I had a request to do like a suggestion that we do like a ancient aliens type show. And I'm not into like the ancient alien theory, but I do like the idea, of there being aliens and astrology. So if anybody is interested in joining and talking about those connections, I mean, we haven't set a date on that or anything, but shoot Abby an email if you're interested in joining that conversation.
We
So-
should get Rabbi Ariel Bar Sadok from Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Woody, should I call him?
Listen, I will reach out to anyone, but at a certain point, they're too cool for us and they won't return my emails and stuff. So I'm happy to talk to whoever. Well, not actually on Ancient Aliens. My mom is like an Ancient Aliens junkie, and she actually did Dr. Stephen Greer's, what is it called? It's whatever meditation you do to summon aliens to like manifest them.
Right.
And she did it. She got some on video. It's blurry and dark at nighttime, but she still did it. It's really cool. I've had aliens walk into my room and like come like hang out around my bed. My mom had it all happen in the same house, so who knows what's going on. But like we can definitely fill up a couple hours of like talking about alien stuff too. I mean, we can make it happen. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of Pentagon reports that are just buried. I'm like, so we're not going to talk about this? This is some pretty shit. But yeah, so if you want to come on and talk about it, you should. Send an email.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Danielle. Everybody out there, thank you so much. All of our contact information is in the video description. Again, check out Danielle's YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and follow her wherever she's followable. And I think that's pretty much it. So